this one, traded for my first big win. Jonathan Fink on the line tonight, with a pack in hand and a story that bites. Old paper, new spark, name on the card, from basement deals to a full-on start. Collected and connected, collected and connected.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Sports Card Collectors Club, episode volume 1. I'm welcoming my first guest ever. I'm so overjoyed to do this. From the Card Life, the producer, we got Brandon Virzel. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, thank you. I'm going to need that song texted to me so I can drive around listening to it. Catchy. It's
That's right.
Great. I love it.
So I have the full 2 minutes. I had it on repeat yesterday over and over. It's just been so much fun. I thank Paulie from Connecting, not just for providing this platform. He also wrote that song. So Paulie, shout out to you. And before we get started, I should point out that Paulie is running on Discord on giveaways all through the show on Collecting and Connecting. So check that out while you watch this podcast. But for today, let me explain what we're going to do. The format of this show is we're going to rip packs. And we're going to talk about the hobby. We're going to talk about our featured guests. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So let's get right into it. So Brandon, what cards did you bring today to rip?
So what I brought I just went to the hobby shop today and just had no idea what I was going to do. I knew I didn't want to grab anything new, but what had just grabbed my attention was I grabbed a 2014 Bowman Chrome box.
Ooh,
so
beautiful.
Gregory Polanco on the cover. I hope it's not a Gregory Polanco auto inside, but there's some good players from that era, some vets that were just in their second or third year. There's 2 Chrome autographs in the box, so I figure if nothing else, I'm going to get 2 autos out of it. There's a first Bowman in every pack, which is, something that was unique to that time period. So super excited about this to see what's in here.
Yeah, that is a great choice. My pack choice is a little different. It's rigged. It's all about pulling Matt Strom, all right? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. All right. I've been super collecting Matt ever since I discovered his TV show and your show. And so look, we're not gonna put pressure on the sports card gods. There's no guarantees, but I did bring a collection of different packs. So let me show you what I got.
Nice.
Now I did give this some thought because the packs with more cards give me a better chance of pulling Matt, right? Sure. But for the sake of pleasing all the products, we got 1 pack of Stadium Club, which is only 5 cards. So that's gonna. By the way, I really do have a super collection of Matt's cards, and I don't have any from Stadium Club. So if I did pull one, that would be epic. We got Heritage Baseball. Now this is one of my favorites because always the design is retro. I think this is 1977 or 76, I forget, but it's a really good-looking card, and I don't have any Heritage from Matt, so that'll be fun to pull. Also, some vintage retro kind of stuff. We got 2025 Topps Archive, another great one. And then this is where Brandon, I'm all in, right? If I'm going to pull this card, it's going to happen in one of these 3 because it's got the most cards per pack. We got 2026 Topps Series 1, which, by the way, I love how they're mixing the modern-day stars with the legends. That's terrific. We got 2025 Topps Update, which will probably be very rookie heavy, but we'll hope to pull Matt there. And then we also got Series 2 from Topps as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll give it a go, and we'll hope we grace. Now I should point out one thing: when it comes to ripping packs, I'm very superstitious. Okay, and I've mentioned in my book, The Flip Life, that in order to please the sports card gods, you got to have the glass magnetics. You can't expect to pull an auto or a numbered card unless you're prepared to take good care of it. So I'm ready to go.
This is hilarious because I'm in the process of moving right now. I don't even know if I've talked to you about this, Jonathan, but I'm moving from Nebraska. I'm going to end up in Phoenix, actually, short term, just family stuff. My daughter, who you met, Alexis, has kind of unique medical needs, and there's better doctors down there. So we're in the middle of a move right now. So I am sitting here ripping without penny sleeves. I don't have top loaders, which I feel I'm shaking as a result of this because I know I'm going to pull something epic here, and then I'm going to have to get it back to my my place without having it's going to take some great care. I'll tell you the story in a little bit, but I pulled a Frank Thomas no name on front rookie out of a hockey arena vending machine. I can tell you the whole story in a little bit, but that was the scariest moment ever because, if it was to grade a 10 and ended up grading an 8.5.
Now let's do it.
Oh yeah. So this is a great one. So I was filming, we do other projects for nonprofits outside of doing the Card Life. I own a production company here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I was going to a shoot where there was a local hockey player. We were doing a video for JDRF, and there was a local high school hockey player who had juvenile diabetes. So we were doing a feature on him and saying how, his struggles of doing that and still playing hockey and everything. And I got the time wrong, and I thought the game started at 8, or I thought it started at 6, but it started at 8. So I got there 2 hours early, nothing to do. It's at the Ice Box here in Lincoln, Nebraska, this small little minor league hockey arena. So I have 2 hours to kill, don't know what I'm going to do. I just start walking around the arena to get some steps in. And in this dark corner of the arena, and if I can't even explain it enough where people would believe what it was like, there's a sports card vending machine.
Was it glowing?
And that's exactly what it felt like. And I'm like, well, this is great. I can kill some time with this. So I walk over to it, almost all junk wax stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy some packs of what potentially could be a lottery ticket. And, junk wax era, that's obviously few and far between, but they had 1990 Topps packs. And I'm like, well, if nothing else, I'll go for a Frank Thomas no name on front, which is 1 in a million. Or at least I'll get a Frank Thomas rookie card out of it, even if it's not the no-name card. So I bought, I think, 4 packs of those 1990 Topps. I go up and sit down, and actually, I changed that. I put it in my bag and didn't open it until I got to the car after the hockey game was over. And I just decided to rip it before I went home while I was sitting there. Well, I open up the first pack, and it's the back of the Frank Thomas card. So again, I'm thinking, this is great. I got a Thomas rookie, if nothing else. I flip the card over and it's the no name on front, which later on I went and looked up at the blogs of the it's one of the most rare rookie cards of all time to be able to pull, and air card and all that as well. And so I'm sitting there and I have nothing to put this in.
I was just going to ask, how'd you take care of it?
That's it. And I'm like, what is the strategy? Is it place it in the middle of the seat and that's where it's going to be the safest because it won't slide and dig into anything? Do I put it kind of in the back of the seat where it's set a little bit more? And I ended up putting it, I think, in the little thing next to the cup holder that was big enough that it wasn't touching anything. But the whole time I'm thinking the centering looked great. I'm like, this could be a $75,000 card. And if I accidentally ding a corner, it turns into a, $5,000 or $10,000 card. So anyways, I got it home. I later got it graded, and it graded an 8.5. And then some other cards, there's these blacklist cards that are part of the strip of ink that came out and that made the Frank Thomas no name on front card. And I didn't know about those other blacklist cards. In the first episode we ever filmed of The Card Life, I brought the other cards because I went back to the vending machine the next day, bought all the other 1990 Topps packs because they would come in cases together, and so there could have been other Frank Thomas cards, and there weren't. So I just put all the other cards that I'd bought in a box, and I took them to the first Card Life shoot ever, and we had an expert on these blacklist cards that are just as rare as the Frank Thomas no name on front card, and I had Matt and him go through the rest of the cards to see if there was any of these blacklist cards as well. And they found, I think it was 6 other ones of these rare blacklist cards. And so I ended up just out of that one trip with 7 cards. My Frank Thomas graded an 8.5. I had 7 other cards. I think 2 or 3 of them are the highest graded ones of all time of those blacklist 1990 Topps cards. So, it was just, same thing. Baseball gods. I was baseball card gods.
Absolute vending machines. I've been seeing on YouTube and on Twitter these Pokemon vending machines in airports and stuff like that, but I've never seen them, and I've never seen a vending machine for sports cards in an arena. So have you seen that before? Is it the only time you've ever seen a vending machine for sports cards? And I
ended up, so the local card shop that I'd gone to forever was Wes's Baseball Cards. I went there in college. When I moved back to Lincoln 16 years ago, I started going back to Wes's again, and I went there and talked to him, and he knew the guy that stocked the vending machine, and it didn't look like a new modern one. It was like the ones that had little holders and it would just drop the pack, so it wasn't great for condition as well. And he talked to the guy that stocked the vending machine, and the guy was like, I cannot believe, he said, that pack has probably been sitting in there for 15 years. He goes, I haven't restocked those 1990 Topps cards forever. So it was just sitting in that arena waiting for me to walk by and be bored and not have anything to do.
Right. It was like, it was waiting for you for this moment.
It was the most unbelievable. I'll never pull anything with more rarity than that card has, and the story behind it makes it even better.
I love it. All right. With that being said, let's rip some packs. Let's see what you got.
Sounds good. Let's rip in here.
I love that.
Yeah, it was.
The serendipity of opening packs is kind of where the whole idea of miracles comes from. The idea of when these moments happen, is it luck? Is it mathematics? Yeah, it's all those things. But I like to believe it's a little bit of spirit too.
That's exactly right. All
Pack
right.
number 1. Here we go.
See what we got here. I'm gonna. So I got a Xander Bogaerts rookie card, which I knew was one of the ones that I would be looking for.
And by the way, I should point out that Bowman, my favorite product, drops tomorrow. Very, very exciting day. Bowman release day. So good choice.
Dallas Keuchel, who's a good pitcher. Daniel Palka and Raul Mondesi. So he was one that was going to be a big thing, but I don't think.
And then his son was supposed to be a big thing for the Royals, Alberto Mondesi, and
he could fly. Oh,
that's right, switch hitter with a lot of speed. Oh. But I think he had some emotional issues.
Yeah.
You know? It's too bad. All right, my turn. I can get my order. We'll go with Stadium Club. Let's see. I'm
going to go on a rant while you're doing this because you're looking for Matt's cards. One of my biggest frustrations is they do not put Matt in every product. It is the guy's the biggest ambassador for the hobby, has been. He was like the only player collected when we launched the show in 2021, and he'll be in 1 or 2 releases a year. It's just, it makes no sense whatsoever. And there's a number of people who collect him because he collects cards. He'll play in road ballparks and have people yell at him, "I'm rooting for you, even though I'm not rooting for your team because you collect cards like I do." And they just do not put him in every product, which is just
it's interesting because now there are a number of players who become known as card guys, but Matt was the OG, and you got to think that's going to come full circle. But you know what? I'm not sure he's complaining because Universe has hooked him up. His clubhouse is now filled with guys like Cags and Bobby Witt and guys who love to rip and collect cards. And so I think he's in a good place. But you're right. Yeah. The Topps should give him some more respect in that regard. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, actually, there is an insert in Bowman called the Card Shop.
Yep.
And how does Matt not get a Card Shop insert? That doesn't make any sense, does it? So that's
a remarkable story. Now, I will say the side thing is he's gotten offers for Topps before for doing sticker autos, and he's rejected it. He says, "I hate sticker autos as a collector. I'll only sign odd card autos." And he's lost card deals as a result of that because he said, "I'm not doing sticker autos." So, you stick to what you
think about
what you
as
want.
A collector. When you rip and you pull an on card, it feels more gratifying than a sticker, doesn't it? I don't know why. I guess because we know where it comes from. We know that some guy had a block of stickers and he could have signed them anywhere at any time, and it can go into any product. Where if it's on card, there's some kind of authenticity. The fact that it was literally that card, and that makes it more special.
Agree.
All right, let's see what we got here. We got Ryan Zimmerman. Now I should point out that with Stadium Club, I'm not even sure if Stadium Club was around in the junk wax era, so I never collected this as a kid. And I only started getting into Stadium Club as an adult, in the last few years. But Stadium Club has always been known as the product with great photography, right? And it's true, though. Now, I don't know why the other products can't step up their game, but it looks like, some products like Prism Basketball, they're like Photoshopped and whatever. But with Stadium Club, I love how they're all, look at that. Look at the dirt coming off and you can, the chalk coming off the ground. I mean, I love the photography in Stadium Club. When I do my pack openings, Brandon, I'll do like a cool photography alert or a cool card alert. And I always appreciate it. And it's like, here we go. So here we go. We got a Royal right here. Opening day starter Cole Reagans. But look at that ball in the air. Yeah. I mean, you can almost see it spinning. I mean,
that's one of my arguments always when people say, it's too expensive to collect. Like, and I have a little bit of a PC where I'll just pick the coolest cards I can find that have the best photography. Like, in fact, I even want to start working on going through every Hall of Famer and finding what card during their playing career most defines that person. What's the Rickey Henderson card that photo on his card most defines him, and just finding that. And that may be a $3 card. It's not going after his rookie card. It's finding what photo on a card. It's one of those things that's underrated that you can collect with a minimal budget and do that.
Okay, so here's where we're going off script, because there isn't a script, but it gets me thinking that you might be perfect to answer this question. So I'm working on the Card Life Volume 3, and so I'm collecting all these different products to rip, and I kind of weave stories to the products, and I'm building a set of one card from every year, from 1989 junk wax all the way to the 1951 Topps. Yep. And I'm so every day in the mail I get 1978 Topps, 1959 Topps, right? And some of the art design from the 50s and 60s is so good, even the 70s.
Yep.
Is there a particular year that comes to mind where you say that's my favorite card design that year?
The one that sticks out the most to me, and it's because the first year I collected was 1984. I was 7 in 1984, and I wouldn't say the design necessarily like appeals to me in terms of like that, but that's the one that I look at and I just kind of have that sentimental feeling because I remember just those cards and being the first ones that I had pinned up on a bulletin board and stuff like that.
Don Manley rookie card, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the first one I think of. Yeah, you said that about me. I've always thought about collecting where I try to get, and it gets almost impossible to do a PSA 10 or a CGC 10 all the way back. But that's what I thought about, is doing a display where you have a 10 or all 9s of every single year. So you can kind of see the perfect example of every card from 50 or 60 years. That's one of the methods I thought of.
Let's talk grading for a second. In volume 1, I grade a bunch of cards. And even the new stuff doesn't necessarily grade well. You think you have a perfect 10, and then it gets a 7, and it breaks your heart because a 7 is like, might as well be raw. What has your experience been with grading? Have you found it to be worth your time and money, or have you found yourself in the end disappointed because you didn't get the grade you wanted for the money you spent?
I've found that I'm terrible at figuring it out, and some of it I wonder is, when you're looking at your own cards, who was that one who just popped up? Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful photo.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should show you while you're talking or wait.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'm really bad, and maybe it is that you just judge your cards as being in better condition than they actually are.
Condition bias?
Yeah, and we've gone down, I think 5 straight spring trainings, we've gone down to CGC, and I've been able to see the process and talk to people and watch them grade and talk through the different elements of it. So I think I have a better understanding of it now, but I still, it is such a unique talent that I don't think I would send anything to grade again without having somebody review it that really knows what they're doing. And because I just found that I'm just not able to do that.
Right. Some of these card shops you pay them a fee and they'll pre-grade for you, which seems ridiculous, right? Like, it's certain enough, how much money are you going to spend on this hobby? But you know what? If someone actually has an expertise, as if they were a grader themselves, there is some point to that, because why waste your time spending $20 to get a card graded if the grade's gonna be hurt its value so much? You might as well just go find the PSA 10 in the wild and just buy it knowing that's already perfect, and then just hold it that way. I see how grading. Look, just a report PSA this past week about the amount of counterfeits.
Yeah.
The Honus Wagner, the Jordan, the top Pokemon cards, they're all fraud.
Yep. So 63% of the mantles that they've seen have been counterfeit over the last few years. 63%.
So personally, I've gotten into actually these are graded, but I really love the glass case, and the real raw card. I collect the card, not the grade. I don't really care about the grade. There's some stuff like when you're dealing with a 1951 Bowman, you have to get it graded, because how else do you know what you're buying? Yeah. And I think it's kind of big and lunky. I'm not even a big fan, although I think you've watching your show enough. I'm going to go CGC next time I do this.
Yeah, I love the folks there. I love the fact that they don't mark up based on what the value is. That's a frustrating thing that I've even run into at the ones that I've graded, where I am getting the value back, but all of a sudden I don't want to say that I owe another $400 because it's a, to be honest, a 9.
I don't even understand out of principle the whole upcharge.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It makes no time out. I don't. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I know.
That's an opportunity for their competitors to take market share, frankly, because PSA has dominated the hobby for so long, and they keep raising their prices, and then they just acquired Beckett. So
Yeah, I mean, and I was just listening to an interview with Ryan Hogue, who's been on our show, the head of PSA. And, they were talking on Sports Card Nonsense about the fact that even if you sent a card in today, you wouldn't have it before the National back.
Right.
The turnaround's too long. And so it's just a weird situation right now where if you send stuff in, you're hoping that somebody doesn't tear an ACL and everything else in the meantime. So, but
it's also a reflection of the growth in the hobby. The popularity of the sports card market is look, it's bigger now than it was during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which I think is terrific.
James Paxton rookie, Big Maple, I think was his nickname.
You start out with rookies in both packs.
Yeah, that was nice. Oh, I got something shiny here. What do we got? We have, who is that? Gosuke Katone. I have rarely not heard of a player. I do not remember him.
Oh, it's a pretty card, though.
Man, yeah,
Yankees.
that Sparkle. Yeah. Huh. I have not heard of, and some of these obviously are prospects. So Jose Urena and Andrew Thurman. So
Yeah,
nothing of
that's
the other
that's the
two.
beauty of Bowman, right? Half
It
the
is.
pack is the MLB guys, which are familiar, and then the other half of the other prospects. Which for me, if you know from Kevin Dempsey and the Republic Baseball League and my Twitter account, like scouting kids and the whole idea. Like in a past life, I must have been a scout. I think, right? I don't know, but I love the whole idea of prospecting is very natural to me because I go to the JUCO games and I can see who's going to be the next great kid. It seems pretty, it's not obvious,
Yep.
but the cream rises to the top. And I always love giving shout outs to the kids that are also good people, have good character. Oh, and by the way, speaking of which, time out. This is huge. Breaking news. I know you're a big Nebraska guy. I'm sure you follow Nebraska football. Who doesn't? With your coach, I'm sure you're following Nebraska basketball. But here's the question. Do you follow Nebraska baseball?
I travel with Nebraska baseball. I when I worked for Husker Vision for the University of Nebraska from 1996 till 2000 when I left to work for the Royals. I travel with the baseball team because I love baseball and I loved baseball at the time. And they went from being probably one of the worst programs in the country, playing at a terrible field. I'd shoot games that were 5.5 hours long. It was 38 degrees, standing on a dugout, videotaping a game. To them, the year I left to go to the Royals, the next year was the first year they made the College World Series. They kind of had built from there. So yeah, I've always had a great tie to Nebraska baseball. I got rings from when they won the Big 12 tournament. I have rings at home. So yeah, I love Nebraska baseball.
All right. Well, a couple of things. First of all, my son did a Nebraska camp and played on their field, which is, for those who don't know, is actually a independent league stadium. So it's not your typical Division I stadium. It's a professional ballpark. And then we did the tour. We did the whole tour of all the facilities at Nebraska, and what a unbelievable operation. That's the first thing. So I've always been very impressed with. We even got on the football field and got to do a photo shoot. The whole thing,
That's
was
awesome.
great.
That's
they know how to
great.
recruit. But then, with regards to baseball, my son played for Blue Valley North, and a kid in his senior class, Blake Sebastian, is a pitcher there. I think he got redshirted.
Yep.
But even more importantly, one of my son's best friends, someone who the first kid that Dempsey ever tweeted about was my son's incoming travel ball team going into high school freshman year. The kid named Ashton Nance, and I actually just watched him pitch in the Johnson County playoffs a couple days ago against Garden City. But he was being recruited. He originally committed to KU, and then they brought in Coach Fitz. All the rosters got shuffled, and he was free agent again. Went JUCO. He was lights out this year. Literally the number 2 starter on perhaps the best JUCO team of all time.
Huh.
And then I saw him pitch a few weeks ago. I spoke to his dad. I'm like, hey, where's he getting interest? And he had offers from a number of different schools. In fact, when I heard that Tulane University, my alma mater, had reached out to him, I contacted Jay Ullman because I know Jay, and I texted him. I'm like, hey, get this kid, because the reason why I'm pointing this out is because Ashton Nance, he's huge. He's 6'4". He's big. On the mound, he is an angry beast, but off the field, he is such a teddy bear, one of the nicest human beings of all time. And so to me, lots of talented kids go up on their road to the show. And is it luck? Is it, what is it? Why do some kids get a freak injury and other kids, have success? But this kid is going to be blessed because he's such a good person that he's the kind of kid you want in your clubhouse. He's the kind of kid you want on your bus when you're riding to and from the airport. When you're in a losing streak, he's such a sweet human being that I thought, when Wichita State offered him, and from Dempsey, I love Wichita State. I would have been thrilled if he went to Tulane, but his parents have roots in Nebraska. So for him, it was coming home. And so Nebraska got a good one. And so I'm not surprised that program's on the rise because they got a great stadium. They have great resources. They got a great fan base with people like you, and their recruiting is fantastic. They're finding the talented kids. So
yeah,
watch
in
out
fact,
for the Big Ten.
So yeah, Will Bolt, the head coach, he actually played at Nebraska when I was traveling with the Nebraska team in the late '90s. He was down at Texas A&M when I worked at Texas A&M. Rob Childress is the pitching coach, and I was on the hiring committee that hired him away from Nebraska to come down at Texas A&M, and they're thrilled that he's back here in Nebraska. He's a genius. The number of players in pro ball right now that went through Rob Childress, so he'll be under good guidance when he gets up here to Nebraska. They're good people.
Yeah, awesome. All right, whose turn is the next?
No, I just went again. You're up.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go with the we'll go with the 2026 Heritage Baseball.
And speaking of nice guys off the field, that's what Matt is. Like, nicest guy in the world, but he'll talk to me. He'll talk to anybody all the time. Like, when he's on the mound, like, his mindset is, I want to throw the ball right into the gut of the guy at the plate. Like, I hate the guy that's up at the plate right now. And not like that at all off the field. But, man, I mean, and he even says he blacks out. Like, after a game, he can't tell you who he faced, what happened, or anything. It is just like a total zone.
So you just nailed something very interesting. You know, you talk about players who get into the zone and they go into hyperspace. They go into a different, to me, you know, if you want to talk about it, you can talk about metaphysical. You can talk about it from a religious standpoint. Some call it Holy Spirit.
Yep.
But you watch guys like Michael Jordan when they had those moments, even James Harden 2 games ago, the last 5 minutes of the game, when he had like 11 points in a row, like he was mediocre all game. And then, you know, when you get into that, a spiritual alignment, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Or maybe it's heightened level, even if you want to be more scientific, it's a heightened level of focus.
Yeah.
Which brings you to that place. And so when you might mention blackout focus, I believe it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, these designs are so good. We got Brent Rooker.
Oh, nice.
Riley Green.
He's a stud. He's having a great year again this year.
Yes, he is. Ryan Reynolds. Look at those palm trees in the background. Isn't that funny? He's like Pittsburgh Pirates. There. Oh, it's probably a spring training photo.
Oh, yeah. All spring training photos usually for Heritage.
The Suarez of the Mariners. Yeah, but it's funny. I didn't even collect when I was 3 years old, like when this card came out, but he just pulled a good one. Roman Anthony.
Hey, nice.
But it's
the rookie card and the rookie cup. That's cool.
Right. There's something about these card designs, though, just get me going.
They
I love
are.
it.
They're cool.
They are. Hold on, real quick. Time out. This one deserves some glass. Let's go.
I would agree with that. Yeah, the rookie card, rookie cup. I think he pulled one of those. Maybe on the show that's coming up, he was talking about how he loves the fact that cards that have rookie card and rookie cup on the same.
Oh, we got another rookie. And then speaking of, this is an All-Star Cup, but it's the green Jacob Wilson.
Nice.
You know,
that's
funny.
A good hit.
You know, people kind of talk about how like parallels have ruined the hobby because, you know, they're printing too many parallels and whatever. But the truth is, like, I think that's what we get the most excited about. Like, when we pull the card and it's a different color, like, I actually love the parallels. So I think it's actually one of the greatest inventions of the hobby. And it's been a way to prevent the junk wax era from returning where they overprint. You have to find creative ways to get more packs into more people's hands. And by the way, you know, hobby talk real quick. I mean, our local Dick's Sporting Goods is now a house of cards, so it's like a flagship location. Their card section is incredible, and they're getting high boxes. They are marking them up, by the way. Not as much as the card shop. They are above MSRP, not unlike the blasters, but on the boxes, hobbies. Yep. But I'm worried about, you know, you do the Hobby House card show. You have gone into many card shops through all your travels, and you know better than anyone that the local card shop has always been the lifeblood of this hobby. Yep. And what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm very concerned now. I see, you know, look, Tom Brady. Look, he's good for the hobby. He's a big name. He's a true card collector. But, you know, Card Vault was a small regional outlet until they put his name on it. And because of his relationship with Fnac, I think he might be on the board of Fnac, by the way. So they're getting all this distribution. And I saw Rob, the Card Father, over at Burbank. He did a video the day. He's really worried. He's getting very little product. Yeah. And I know that they say that the local card shop, they make half their money on flipping singles. But what are your thoughts about the plight of the local card shop in today's world?
It is. I mean, and it's the community side of things. I mean, at least Cardball would have a little bit of an argument that you can go in and talk to people and hang out and do all that kind of stuff. But I will say that it's different going to a mall that's connected to the Patriots Stadium to go to a card shop versus going to VSM Sports Cards in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I mean, the community side of it, I think, is the thing that's going to sustain those shops and overtake that. I mean, I've seen it with Hobby House, for those that don't know, it's essentially a reality show about a local card shop, and I'll go there. I'm going there next week, and I'll spend 3 days just hanging out in the shop, and we'll see what comes in and who comes in and what they pull and what they're looking for and stuff. But the absolute best moments are the people who are coming in regularly, and they do it because they love the family that owns the shop. They love the people who work there. They love having conversations that when they walk in, the person working behind the counter knows, they love old baseball. And so I can tell them we just got this old baseball box in that you could buy and rip. It's that relationship side of things that even I've heard about, like at Dick's, is a lot of times you can look, but you have to call someone because it's behind a glass case in some cases to get stuff. And so then it's an employee coming over. They have no idea what you're talking about. I want a hobby box of 25 Bowman Chrome. I don't know what that is. Which one? They unlock the case, they hand it to you, and you're not going to sit there and rip it in the middle of a Dick's.
There's no community.
And so you're going to lose that community side of things. So I think there's definitely going to be a tipping point where it'll go back to, these independent shops. A lot of people were worried at first about Fanatics and the fact that they had stores all across the country connected to stadiums, and they're just going to make those the hobby shops everywhere. But almost everybody I know that lives in those big cities, the last thing you're going to do is take the time to drive out. It's usually inconvenient to park wherever the stadium is.
Yeah.
And do that to go to your card shop. You want some place that's a few miles away that you can walk in, you can spend a couple hours in. It's easy to get in and out of. You can run in and get a box real quick if you want to. Like, that aspect of it I'm not worried about, because for convenience, people aren't going to go for that. I mean, I think even like at Mall of America, which I've taken my family to a lot of times, love it. And that's where one of the Tom Brady card vault shops are. But I don't think there's a lot of people that are in the suburbs that it takes 35 minutes to go up there. They're going to go out of their way to drive to Mall of America, park, walk to the card vault store versus going to their hobby shop that's 10 minutes away and you can park in front of the shop.
Yeah, so. I wonder if like the big boardroom guys at Fanatics, at some point, they probably had a strategy to, hey, let's let Card Vault go nationwide, then we'll acquire them or whatever. But you know what? I think that's changed now because, the Whatnot, Fanatics Live breaking model has been so popular and so profitable that I think, like, who needs a card shop when they can just vertically integrate all their stuff, right? I mean, that's been very successful for them. So my guess is they might leave the card shops alone. But my concern is that you don't want them to overproduce product because then it gets diluted again. But, there's a lot of mouths to feed and there's more mouths to be fed. In fact, I just heard Grip and Rip was mentioning on his show that Target just made an announcement. Well, although Walmart might be scaling down, Target's going to quadruple their size. Most Targets around the country, there's only a very small section of the register. Now they're going to have in the toy section, a full 2 aisles. And think about how much product that is.
Yep. It's a fascinating discussion. I was just talking to somebody today. Now I kind of forgot the direction I was going with this. Oh, I was having this discussion about our Card Life viewership. So, our show comes on a lot after NBA, NHL, MLB games. So we get a lot of just general sports fans that might collect a little bit or collected when they were kids and now they're like figuring out that sports cards are a thing again. I just had this discussion the other day of our audience is so different than people who follow the hobby stuff in social media. I bet if you polled the Card Life audience, 75% wouldn't know who Jeff Wilson is. They wouldn't know that Tom Brady has card vault shops. They wouldn't know what Whatnot is or what. And I'd say probably 40% of our audience doesn't even know what breaking is. Wow. Those are the people that go to their local card shop, they buy packs, they interact with people and stuff, but they don't know anything in this social media hobby.
Innocence still exists?
Oh, it's incredible. And I am amazed all the time when I have those conversations with people, and they have no idea that this big hobby news that everybody's doing videos about because of this scandal or this release or this coming out, a majority of the audience that are going and buying boxes once a week have no idea about any of that stuff and don't really want to get that deep into that. They like collecting, they like buying cards. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that there is a huge amount of audience that's actively into the hobby that doesn't know any of that stuff and probably never will involve themselves with it.
Well, Fanatics, Michael Rubin talked about 10x in the hobby, and I'm sure he's going to go global and expand that way, but how would he go about doing that? Well, I think it's getting this exact thing you're talking about, this crossover market, people who are these casual sports fans who have never bought their first card yet, right? And then once they open that first pack and they feel the magic that we always feel when we were kids, that's how the hobby expands and grows. All right, let's rip another pack, and then we're going to talk about the baseball guys.
Sounds great. And Fanatics is doing a better job of this. I think they've figured this out. But the biggest way that they could 10x the hobby is you have to tell stories. You have to tell why people should be interested in this stuff. We've had it happen again on the Card Life. We did a feature on the McLaughlin. They're the World Series cards. They're like art cards from the early 70s that had like different World Series and what the main moment was. It was drawn as a cartoon. And we did a story on a collector in Houston that collects those. And he sells them on eBay as well. He collates the sets and then sells them as sets. And after we did the story and told about the artist and what he did and how the artist started off doing mail order and told the whole history of these cards, the guy called me like 3 days after the episode first debuted. He's like, I sold out of everything on eBay. Like, people, all they had to do was hear the story of why these cards were special and unique and all this stuff. And he was like, I could not believe it. Like, I've never seen that happen again. We did a story on a baseball starting lineup talking baseball. It was an old baseball game that was electronic.
Oh, I watched that.
Oh yeah, and those went up to, I bought one on for $60 so Matt and his brother could play for it. They were going for $600 by the end of the month because everybody was buying them on eBay.
You know what I was thinking? I thought to myself, I wish I had that game during the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. That is it.
I create a whole league.
Oh, absolutely. I have mine. I'm still thinking about it. I just got to have time to do it eventually. We got a Gene Segura, John Ryan Murphy, Corey Knable, and Michael O'Neill. So nothing.
Corey Knable, he gets a mention in Baseball Gods Are Real Volume 2.
Is that right?
When my apprentice John Perrin was in spring training with the big club, with the Brewers, he was already now my employee working for me. He was a licensed financial advisor, part-time with me, part-time in the minor leagues with the Brewers. And he would be, constantly on his laptop checking stocks. And most of the players were like, what are you doing? Like, da, da, da. And when Corey Knable and Brent Suter and a couple of older guys found out that he was actually a financial advisor, who does that? They created a makeshift financial advisor office in front of the bathroom, in front of the toilet, with a giant sign. And an article is written about it, and that picture is actually in the back of the book because it was like a classic rookie prank. They were like making fun of him, but in a way they were giving him respect because how many 19-year-old kid or 20-year-old kids are actually have a side career already when they're on the road to the show?
Exactly, absolutely.
Too funny. All right, so let me open a pack here. So while I open this pack, there's a couple of Baseball God moments that I wanted for Brandon and I to talk about. And as a way for me to remember to discuss it, I wore this shirt. Now, this is an Ohtani shirt from back in the day. And quick side note, thanks to John Perrin, one of the spring trainings when I was in Phoenix to watch Perrin pitch, actually he made his debut in Scottsdale against the San Francisco Giants. I'll never forget his first strikeout was against the Panda, Pablo Sandoval. Then he got knocked around and didn't get out of the inning, and it didn't end well. But the next day, the Brewers were playing the Angels, and it was Shohei Ohtani's spring training debut, his first time ever pitching on American soil. And I was there for the week, and he was like, Fink, you want tickets? I'm like, yes, sir. And interestingly enough, Brandon Woodruff was the opposite pitcher. And in my opinion, Brandon outpitched Ohtani that day. In fact, as hard as Ohtani was throwing, Woodruff was throwing even harder. The glove was snapping even faster. And I thought to myself, Ohtani's going to be amazing, no doubt about it. But Brandon Woodruff, he's a prospect, man. And he
was a stud. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so let's see if we can pull up Brandon Woodruff right now. First, we got James Wood, Team Arizona Diamondbacks. Look at he's got the bucket on his head. Cool photography alert right there. I love that. Again, you know me, I dig the parallels. The more, the better. Rookie card. I still think the Seattle Mariners are going to make a long run in the playoffs because of pitching. I still think they have one of the deepest.
If it lines up, it's just health. If you can keep your pitching staff healthy, you have a shot.
I'm glad I pulled a Brewers card. We just talked about the Brewers. That's awesome. Oh, that's a cool photography alert right there. Look at that.
That's neat.
Here's another one. I like how every once in a while they'll choose to have the photo
over the border. Yeah,
across the border. I wonder who makes those decisions at Topps. Okay, so there's a few Baseball God moments that have occurred recently and in the most recent months. And when the one that happened recently, Brandon, you were the first person to notice it and to tweet about it and tell me about it because you knew I would appreciate it. But what I loved is how you appreciated it. So why don't you share the audience what happened with the Los Angeles Angels and Zach Neto and Mike Trout?
Yeah, I was just kind of scrolling on social media and saw just a small snippet was mentioned about Trout, and Nito was in a slump, and I think they even mentioned something about that opening Pokemon cards were good luck, and if we pulled a Charizard, you'd hit a home run tonight, and that's exactly what happened. I think they both homered that night,
Yeah.
and that was the first thing I thought of. Is I'm like, I gotta tag Jonathan on this because this is exactly what he writes and believes in. So
Now, look, I know the skeptics will say it's the power of positive thinking or it's a coincidence, but Mike Trout literally said, if you pull a Charizard, you're going to get a home run tonight and we're going to win the game. And he did hit a home run and it did win the game, but Mike Trout also hit a home run.
Yep.
So it's sort of like when the energy is flowing and you know, the lightning strikes, it all strikes. And so look, some baseball god moments are very obvious. That was one where it made headline news. Everyone kind of knew it was, you know, like a divine intervention moment. But sometimes they're more subtle. So let me give you my first baseball god moment, because the idea is that, like, you know, if we all do have, you know, well, look, it could just be God, it could be angels, spirit guides, whatever. But if we have, you know, deities falling over us, then maybe they are helping us, you know, guide our path and decisions we make, and how, you know, you make a wrong turn and it turned out to be the right turn, and who knows. But this is my first book in the sports card world, called The Sports Card Collectors Club Volume 1. And the first half of the book was an investment book. I have a 20-year career as a financial advisor. Investing is what I do for a living. And the same way I love prospecting for Brandon Woodruff or the next Conor Griffin, I knew about Bitcoin at $8, right? And I watched it go to 100,000. So that same desire, intuition, that calling, that looking for something, that was always there. And so when I got out of the hobby for 30 years, and when everyone else, the cliche story is everyone gets out of the hobby, and everyone gets back in years later, right? But that's part of the recycling process. That's actually very healthy for the hobby. That's how these hobbies become a religion, right? But anyway, when I first got back into the hobby, it was after the pandemic, because I was busy writing books. In fact, I was creating Kevin Dempsey, the college professor who loves baseball in the Republic Baseball League. But a key part of that character, because he's really like the inner me, right? He loves baseball cards. So baseball cards was always in my consciousness as I was writing that character. In fact, the hub of the story is meeting at the barbershop, which is an old barbershop that's turned into a baseball card shop. So I've already written volumes 1 and 2, and the pandemic ends, and I'm, you know, I got the bug back, but I hadn't, you know, really gotten a chance to express myself. And so I went to a couple of card shows, and that's when I kind of fell in love with the hobby again. And then since then, I've been you know, a card junkie ever since. And so, but the key was, when I got back into the hobby had changed. You know, when I was a kid, it was about building sets. It was about super collecting your favorite player, right? I guess you always knew that there was a monetary value to cards, because when you were trading 3 commons for the cards you wanted, you knew there was some value there. But it was before eBay, it's before the internet. We were thinking about value in terms of meaning and feeling, not in terms of monetary value. But when I got back into the hobby this time, I mean, it's a full-blown economy, you know, and Pokemon too. And so when I started seeing the big money and seeing these 15-year-old kids with these cases with $1,000 cards, I couldn't believe it, right? And so I realized, well, this new hobby is kind of like, it's an investment hobby now. But as an investor by nature, I kind of resonated with that, right? So I kind of, you know, compartmentalized the inner child in me. He liked to collect and build sets, and I embraced the modern day hobby. You know, I got the app, you know, Sports Card Investor, and got Card Ladder, and I was thinking of the hobby in that way. And when I wrote this book, I was like, every chapter would be, you know, how would Warren Buffett buy sports cards? How would a hedge fund do it? How would a day trader do it? And as you know from reading the book, some chapters I make money, some I don't. But through that experience, I was back in the hobby and I was immersed. But I was doing it to flip. I was doing it to make money. And as far as I was concerned, I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I just didn't realize it at the time. And I had an epiphany. There was a Royals rain delay. And now, back then, it was when FanDuel ran broadcasting for the Royals. Now it's with the MLB Network. Another conversation for another day. But the rain delay comes on, and then boom, then I see Matt Strom ripping packs. And I started getting all those feelings again, the warm feelings that you get when I was, you know, second grade on the school bus, stripping packs before school, and, you know, with a friend after school under the tree, you know, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this hobby all wrong. I don't want to invest anymore. I want to collect again. And so your episode and your TV show is the pivotal story change in my book, where I go from being an investor to a collector. And so I go on the rest of the book, and I'm building 86 Flair NBA basketball, and I have complete sets from my entire childhood, you know, all through the 80s, even to the 70s, right? And so I'm all in. And of course, before the book was even published, I found you because I knew I had to give you the book, because you're the reason this book is compelling. If it wasn't for you, it would just be an investment book, and no one needs another investment book about sports cards. This book is dynamic because of the role that you played in the storyline, honestly, right? So I made the book, we connect, you invite me to an episode, and then, you know, here I am, what a surreal moment. I'm driving to Chanute on my road to Neosho, you know, Johnson County, you know, Neosho Community College. And by the way, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know that Matt would be there, right? I know he'd be ripping with Coach Murray, who, by the way, we've become friends since then. I've watched him play. I've given books to all of his team, right? And try to give them good luck, you know, and then watching the shooting of that and doing that interview, that was actually the next transformation, because I then start the design for volume 2 and volume 3, the card life, which I'm dedicating to you, obviously. But in the flip life, I write about how I turned the hobby into a Trojan horse to sell my books, to flipping cards through eBay. But the card life was about the pack opening series, which started because I watched Matt do it and I was inspired, right? We're doing my new podcast, right? So, and I've also started doing shows. I'm vending. I did my first show last month. I'm booked for 2 more shows. In 2 weeks, I'm in Lawrence, and I'm in Kansas State next, and I'm selling books. I'm selling books. I'm selling junk wax. I'm selling singles. And I'm telling you, when I spent my first day at a card show, the time flew by. The whole day went by like that. Yeah. I had the best time ever. I wasn't even concerned about, you know, breaking even or turning a profit. You got to pay for your table, but actually turned a very nice profit, turned out. Mm-hmm. And it was so much fun. And that's what this is about. This hobby is about fun. And I feel like at times we forget that, because there is so much money, right? And we see the scalpers. Look, there are people sleeping in Best Buys to get ahead of a restock. I mean, it's getting crazy. But those people are in it because of the quick buck and the money. I wanted to be a messenger in this hobby like you are, right? You're spreading the gospel of the hobby for all the right reasons. It's about, you know, collecting. It's about joy. You know, it's about friendship. It's about community. You know, and I felt like, you know what a platform that this podcast brings. And so the reason why I wanted to incorporate ripping cards is because ripping cards is the genesis of the hobby. It's ripping a pack and that mystery. You know, what's coming next. And every pack is different, and that's what's so exciting about it. We know this. We know that Topps prints, you know, the card, you know, data, right? You even have a guest coming up who's gonna spend his time quantifying all that stuff. But despite all the data, you never know what's in this next pack, and that is what makes this hobby so magical and so special, and why I think we all love it, is because it captures that magic, that mystery, that mysticism, right? And so with that, let me rip this pack, and then let me turn it over to you, because the next Baseball God moment is not how, you know, I put you in my book and then a year later, before the book is even released, I'm recording an episode to be on your show. I mean, how surreal was that for me? But how surreal is it for you, okay? Because you literally were an employee for the Royals. Matt was drafted by the Royals. He's then been traded around all over the Dutch different teams. And then when we recorded in November, he was playing for the Phillies. But now he's playing for the Kansas City Royals. So take it away. How is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that day when you went out there, and I think we just had the discussion a little bit before, because we opened some cards before you arrived, but Matt was talking about, you know, there was a lot of rumors about whether the Phillies were going to trade him and stuff. And one of his quotes that day was, you know, I really loved the Royals organization more than any other organization that I've played for. I'd love it if I got traded to the Royals. And I mean, it was days, and was it a week later? I don't know how quickly it was. It was pretty quickly after that, but that was kind of his definitive statement that day. He made some comment about the Yankees may be a problem. They were interested, but the hair was going to be a problem, which I thought was fascinating. Fascinating. But yeah, he was hoping for the Royals. And the other thing I will say about that as well is going all the way back to, we were doing the show when Bobby Witt's first Bowman cards came out, and Matt was saying those first 2 years, like, this guy's like a generational talent. Like, this is someone who can put a club on his shoulders and take him to the World Series and, have a club go to multiple World Series and stuff. And he said that when he was with the Padres, he was talking about Bobby that way. And so I think that was also part of it, is he knew that there's that special enough of a nucleus here that, people would think, oh, the Phillies are contenders and the Royals aren't. But I mean, Matt's been saying for years that Bobby was going to be that way. And, they struggled at the beginning of this year, but now it's already starting to turn around. They've been one of the hottest teams in baseball the last couple weeks. So I think there's good things ahead.
Well, speaking of which, your life story and your content as a producer writes itself too, because I remember when we first recorded in November, you thought you might be in the spring training episode, but then you got Bobby Witt to do an episode, and then I got pushed back. And then after Matt got traded, you guys got to do an episode at the Hall of Fame at Kauffman Stadium on opening day, right? So I was thrilled. What an honor to be pushed back again because Matt's coming home. So why don't you take us through that day? What was it like recording at Kauffman Stadium? Oh,
it was awesome. And I'm a lifelong Twins fan. The first game I ever went to, the first game I ever went to was in 1985 in the Metrodome. I was 8 years old, and the Twins won the ninth inning. They were horrible then, last place team, but they won in the ninth. So I thought at 8 years old, this is the greatest team ever. I'm going to be a Twins fan for the rest of my life. Like, literally every day I'd open up the newspaper, I'd cut out the box score, I'd cut out the game recap and paste it into an album. I still have the album of just every game, win or lose, I was pasting whatever the Twins game was. And then, of course, they won the World Series in 87 when I was 10. They won it again in 91 when I was 14. So formative ages for that. And so I'm a lifelong Twins fan. And so I follow the Twins pretty extensively, so I knew that Mick Abel and Justin Topa with the Twins were both collectors. So I just messaged them on Instagram and said, hey, I do the Card Life with Matt, and Mick knew about it because with the Phillies, we were kind of planning on doing something before he got traded. And both of them said, yes, we'd love to do it. Let's do it. And so not only getting to film with Matt in the Hall of Fame the day after opening day, but Justin and Mick were there. And anytime you get to open with players, it is just incredible because they have a story about every pack. I played with this guy in minor leagues. This is the first guy that hit a home run off me when I was in pro ball. I roomed with this guy in the minors. I mean, that's the great thing is I've probably spent, we're 60 episodes deep. So you're talking about 80 or 90 hours I've probably spent with Matt opening boxes and packs. And I'm still just completely entertained by him opening everything because of the stories he has. That's just one generation away. In fact, the episode that you're going to be on that debuts this Friday, the 15th, Matt has an incredible story about Mason Wynn with the Cardinals. And Wynn hit a home run off Matt. And the next inning, JT Realmuto had to hit a double, so he's at second base. And Mason Wynn goes over to Realmuto and says, hey, I hear that Matt collects cards of players that hit home runs off of him. Is he going to want me to sign some cards? And so JT told Matt this after the game, was like, now don't be mad. He was being really cool about it. He wasn't taunting you. And Matt said, he just kind of laughed because they won the game. So all he cares about is winning. But he sent some cards over then for Mason to sign. But, that's another example of he learned that through the Card Life. Mason Wynn did because we're on almost all those baseball networks.
So
and
awesome.
In the middle of a game, he's asking Matt's catcher if he's going to want some autographed cards because he had home run off of him in the inning before. So that kind of stuff, it's just, that stuff's just awesome. I mean, and as a side note of being part of the game, the All-Star game, when Matt made it in 24, I think it was, and him wearing a belt of baseball cards, as cards from my collection. So that was the coolest thing in the world as a player at an All-Star game wearing cards from my collection on his belt. He had cards in his back pocket during the game. So, there's just been so many moments.
The cards in his back pocket did make it into an actual product, correct?
No, so he kept both of them. We got them authenticated and graded right away. So he's got left pocket and right pocket, card 1 and 2. And so the Baseball Hall of Fame we talked to afterwards, and they want the card belt. They want those cards. But we're trying to arrange an episode where we can go out there and they can put it in their baseball card exhibit because no player's ever done anything like that for baseball cards before.
Does the Card Life have anything yet in the Hall of Fame? Like anything?
No, Okay. Nope. So, and Matt obviously doesn't as well. But the hardest thing is Cooperstown's so hard to get in and out of. So for Matt to be able to go in during the season's impossible. During the off season, maybe. I mean, he hunts most of the off season, so it's not the most convenient thing in the world. But eventually, we'll get up there to Cooperstown and do an entire episode from there, and hopefully get his cards and belt.
Let me know when you do that because that would be my excuse to go. Because I've been in the past. My son has not been. but it's on the bucket list. And I actually have 4 of my books in the library at the Hall of Fame.
That's
and
awesome.
So I would, and I always told people, like, you know what? I don't need to become a best-selling author. I want my books to have an impact in society. Obviously, I care a lot about them. I work hard to write them. But when they took my first book, I was like, I'm good. Like, my career is made. I have a book in the Hall of Fame. My great-grandkids wanted to go to Cooperstown and find my books. And Robert Moore, last year at the AA Phillies, was traveling up through Cooperstown. I think they go to Buffalo. Yep. And they spent the day there. And he went to the library because he's in the back of, he's mentioned in my books. And he's like, Fink, they're there. I saw them. It's true.
He's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's we have 5 minutes to go until 7 o'clock. So let's each rip a pack, one more to finish it up, and then
sounds good.
Let me just ask you about talking about your childhood. You mentioned '84 you started. Tell me about your childhood collecting experience. Did you set build? Did you collect? Where did you go to get your cards? Just take me through your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I just opened packs like crazy. The Quick Shop was the place I could walk to from my house and go there and buy Topps cards. And so my kind of key collecting years were 85 to 89, so peak junk wax. And I just bought cards. Like, I didn't care about collecting. I wanted to collect all the twins from every set, so I'd buy enough packs to get all of that. But I mean, I have thousands and thousands of cards from that era, all of them in terrible condition because I was constantly shuffling through them. I love baseball stats. I love baseball notes. So I read every back, every photo, analyzed everything. So yeah, I was just obsessed with that growing up during that era, and then just took my cards with me, everywhere I went, to college, working for the Royals and Mariners, which I didn't collect during the years I worked in Major League Baseball, which I have no idea why I didn't, because it would have been great to have Ichiro sign stuff when I go film stuff with him.
Even you went through a hiatus at one point.
Oh yeah, I had a hiatus, and I will say some of it was working in baseball is ridiculous. When you work for a team, especially in video production, like, I'd get there at 7 in the morning and I'd be there at midnight. If there was a 14-game homestand, there's no weekends. You're there from 7 a.m. till midnight, day after day after day after day. And then if the homestand ends on a Sunday, you're still coming in on Monday because that's a work day, and then starting the whole thing again. And so I'd work, there's weeks I'd work 110 hours, which seems impossible. The math doesn't seem to work, but it does when you work in baseball. And so the last thing I wanted to do was go home and look at baseball players or interact with them by opening cards. So I understand why I didn't do that, but it took me moving back to Nebraska when we started our production company 18 years ago now, that I was like, at Target, I just grabbed a pack one day, and then it just this is 2008, 2009, and then it just grew, Then I started going to the hobby shop again, start buying hobby boxes, just ripping wax, and that's pretty much what I do more than anything else.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to connect then is, so I get how you got back into the hobby, but that's one thing. But to then take that and turn it into a TV show is another. So you had a production company, but you could have produced anything. I'm sure you wanted to produce something in sports. That was your background. But where did the light bulb go off to say, here's a niche that, by the way, there's now another card show out there on I guess MLB Network has one, but you were the first by far. You were the vanguard. Like, that takes a lot of courage to say, I have an idea and I'm going to run with this. So tell me just take me through that epiphany when you said, I'm turning this into a show. This is compelling stuff.
Yeah, we were already producing shows like for PBS, and we produced a lot of sports shows for some of these same networks that Card Life is on. But if I would have, in 2018 or 2019, if I would have approached those network executives and said, hey, we want to do a show about sports cards or baseball cards, they wouldn't have replied to my email. They wouldn't have thought anything about it. But I'd always had the idea that it was going to be successful if I could find the right time to do it, because anybody that watches sports opened packs when they were little, or opened one pack when they were little. So there's going to be some kind of a tie to that if a show like that's coming on after a MLB game or an NBA game. And so it took the pandemic. It took, 2020, 2021, when everybody's talking about the sports card boom, when Wall Street Journal's writing about it, ESPN's doing stories on it. And that was just my time. It was February of 2021. I messaged the networks we were airing other shows on and said, hey, I'm starting a show about sports cards. Would you air it? Every one of them replied within minutes and said, yes, we'll air the show. My next message, in fact, it was Alexis, my daughter, was having a surgery. This was in a hospital. And late at night, I messaged Matt on Twitter and said, hey, do you want to host a show about sports cards? And Matt replied back and said, yep, let's do it. And then 3 months later, we were filming the first show. And to tie it back into what you were just talking about with the investing side of things, one of the only conversations me and Matt had before we were actually in Arizona filming together was, Matt said, hey, we're not going to talk about like, this player is going to go up in value. I think this is a good buy and stuff like this. And I'm like, no, I have no interest in that. That's not my thing. And Matt's like, Good, then we'll be good to go then. And so, from day one before we even filmed, both of us were kind of on the same level of like, there's plenty of content around that. We just want to tell good stories and talk about collecting, and that's going to be our focus. Yeah, we'll talk about if you pull a card, what it's probably worth at the time, but that's in no way, shape, or form going to be our focus. It's just to hobby. We've been to cities 5 or 6 times, and I still have a dozen stories in some cities I haven't told yet, because everywhere you go, there's a cool story about somebody that collects, a collection, a card, a business around the hobby. There's something everywhere, and those are the stories that are good to take, and those are the stories that I think could 10x the hobby, because you have to give people a reason to be interested, to be invested in it, besides this card may go up 20% and you can flip it and make some money off of it. So that's been our focus since June of 21, and it's still what we do every single month. Well,
you were my favorite TV show before I was a guest on it. Okay, that's a fact. But I do want to thank you, Brandon, for being my first guest, because the Card Life is my favorite TV show, and I could not have thought of a better guest to start this podcast experience. I want to thank Paulie from the Collecting and Connecting Podcast Network for making this happen and making it happen so quickly. I'm forever ever grateful. And I guess I'll just wrap it up with this. You mentioned you're moving temporarily to Phoenix because the best doctors in the world for your daughter's needs are in Phoenix. Well, it just so happens that's where the Cactus Leagues plays spring training. So I think the baseball gods are definitely real.
That's right.
Brandon from the Card Life, thank you so much for joining me. God bless.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate you.
You take care. Thanks so much again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.